You can give them to the birds and bees. I need fun. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. Your love give me such a thrill, but your love don't pay my bills. I need fun. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. Money don't get everything is true, but what it don't get I can't use. I need fun. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. Money, lots of money, whole lot of money. Give me money, a lot of money, all of leaf green, yeah, that's right, baby, that's what I mean. Give me money.
Even with 6 feet apart, we are a generation still connected, rising up and working hard. We may be young, but we make an impact. Show up, mask up.
A woman will sell her precious body for 4 pieces of paper. It carries a lot of weight. For that me, almighty dollar. Talking about, I know that money is the root of all evil. You funny things, some people give me a nickel, brother, can you spare that? Money can drive some people out of their mind. No good, no good. Don't sell your soul for the money, no, no. Lay down, women will. Money, you little old evil, do funny things, some people. Give me a nickel, brother, can you spare that? Money can drive some people out of their mind. Got to have it, I really need it. Give it up, give it up, give it up, yeah. Got to have it. Some people really need it. Give me cash money. I need. Keep me that bad. How many days have I heard you say? Don't let money rule you. How many days have I heard you say? Don't let money fool you. Oh, yeah. Got to have it. I really need it. Save your soul, don't sell it, for that me.
Hey everyone.
Don't let money
Just in case anybody is now coming in. Like I said, this one is for Trinity K-Bars who have to report back to Grand Rapids, Wisconsin, but they will be
keep on changing, yeah. Changing up your mind. Just keep on changing, yeah. Changing up your mind. Telling y'all. Keep I keep telling y'all. Don't let money go. Don't let money change you. All my time, yeah. But it'll keep on changing, yeah. Changing up your mind. It'll keep on changing, yeah. Changing up your mind. I'm telling y'all. Don't let money go. Don't let money change.
Even with 6 feet apart, we are
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Okay, perfect. So if anybody hasn't taken the intake form, I'm going to paste it one more time just because we have to do it every time someone else joins the session. So if you've gotten this comment several times, just ignore it if you've already taken it. Like I said, this intake form is for Trinity and HR. She needs us to get everyone to complete it every session for grant reporting reasons. So she'll be the only one who will see any of the responses that you do. So we're so excited to have you guys here. It looks like it's 10:07, so I think we are ready to get started. We hope you enjoyed the music. My brother's got pretty good taste in music. He picked those songs himself. But welcome. Like I said, my name is Alexandra Dowdy, and I am the Career and Technical Education Admin for the college, and I will be one of your presenters today. My other presenter is Daniel Barrett. He is an instructor at the College of Business Administration. Over here, Nika. You know what, let me do this. Hold on a second.
It's not you. Can everyone mute their mic, please?
Does everybody, is there echo now? Is everybody good? All right, perfect. So like I said, I'm Alexandra Dowdy. I'm a Career and Technical Education Admin for the college. I'll be one of your presenters today. The other one is my brother, Daniel Barrett. He is an instructor at the college in the Business Administration and Finance. We're so excited to have you guys here. Like we said on PD Day, this will be the first session that we are doing for our mini session for Financial Literacy Month. And this session is on budgeting. So without further ado, let's get started. So just to give you a little background on today's lesson, we're pretty much going to talk about what a budget is, the steps to creating an effective budget, and basically figuring out how that budget will align with your values, vision, and goals. Okay, so as we discussed, the 5 essentials on financial wellness on PD Day, the first of those is budgeting. So to provide some context for today's session, we're going to look at a short video that discusses the importance of budgeting when approaching the topic of saving.
You've covered the necessities like rent, the light bill, and groceries. And now you've got some money left over. You know you're supposed to be saving, but where do you even start? Understanding a few principles can help you prioritize your savings goals and figure out where to put your money. The first principle is to focus on retirement. For most people, retirement is like you've covered the necessities like rent, the light bill, and groceries. And now you've got some money left over. You know you're supposed to be saving, but where do you even start? Understanding a few principles can help you prioritize your savings goals and figure out where to put your money. The first principle is to focus on retirement. For most people, retirement is likely to be the biggest financial goal of their lives. So you may want saving and investing to be a major focus. But if there are financial burdens that could jeopardize your retirement savings, removing them is an important priority. That's why an emergency fund is the place to start. Unfortunately, most Americans don't have enough saved to take care of a surprise $500 expense like an emergency room visit or car repair, let alone something more severe like losing your job. To protect your long-term savings, you can make setting aside 3 to 6 months of expenses a top priority. To figure out how much you need, add up your essential monthly expenses, things like rent, utilities, and groceries. It may be helpful to keep your emergency fund in a separate savings account that you can access quickly but won't be tempted to borrow from for day-to-day expenses. This account can act as a buffer, so you don't have to pull out the credit card or raid your retirement account when you find yourself in a jam. Once you've got an emergency fund, consider shifting your focus to another common retirement savings obstacle, high-interest debt. High-interest debt is anything over 5%, so credit cards, personal loans, and especially payday loans. Debt with a high interest rate is likely to grow faster than any money you invest for retirement. Debt that doesn't reach that 5% threshold, things like most federal student loans or mortgages, can be approached a little differently. It's important to make regular payments on these, but don't worry about trying to pay them off early. You'll likely earn more over the long run by investing than paying off low interest debt. As of 2019, the average annual return of the S&P 500 over the past century is about 10%, much higher than the 4.5% interest rate on a subsidized federal student loan. Now, it may make sense to put money toward retirement before paying down high interest debt if your employer matches contributions to a retirement plan like a 401k. If your employer offers a match, contribute just enough to get the full amount. You don't want to pass up free money, so it can be a good idea to prioritize getting that match over paying down debt. Once you've got debt under control, you're ready to focus even more on retirement. A commonly held rule is to save at least 15% of your income for retirement. So where should you put all that money? Consider using tax-advantaged investment accounts and minimizing fees to potentially maximize your savings growth. Retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs offer tax benefits that can potentially allow your money to compound more quickly. However, 401ks sometimes carry fees that can eat into savings. If your employer matches, you should still contribute enough to get the full match, but you may want to consider contributing anything beyond that to an IRA, which might have lower fees and more investment choices. After maxing out retirement savings, the next step pretty much depends on your circumstances, but the same principle applies. Using tax-advantaged accounts can help to potentially maximize your savings. For example, if you're saving for a kid's college, consider contributing to a 529 plan. It might seem strange that a child's education is a lower priority than something as far off as retirement, but remember, borrowing for college might be easier than borrowing to fund your golden years. Healthcare is another major expense that may require saving. If you're on a high-deductible health plan, a health savings account is another tax-advantaged account you might want to consider. HSAs are designed to let you set aside and invest untaxed cash to pay out-of-pocket for medical expenses. The combination of tax benefits and potential growth from investments may make an HSA an attractive vehicle for saving for medical expenses in retirement. If you're lucky enough to have maxed out all the tax-advantaged accounts that are available to you, you could also consider investing for long-term goals in a regular taxable brokerage account. A final principle to remember is that investing may not be prudent for short-term goals, like a vacation or a down payment on a house. You may not have time to recover from market downswings, so you might also want to consider using a high interest-bearing savings account rather than investing money you'll need in the next few years. If you've made it to this point, congratulations, you're a savings pro. The important principles to remember are to focus on retirement, use tax-advantaged investment accounts, and invest for long-term rather than short-term goals. Whatever comes next, make sure you're keeping the basics well-funded. If you're a smart investor,
All right, so I know that was a lot of information. So basically that video is a summary of what we're going to touch base through this whole entire month. So let's just recap the steps that he said. The first step was to develop a budget and identify waste. The second one was to get an emergency fund, pay off high interest debt, employer match, and contribute to either retirement accounts, tax advantage, and tax brokerage accounts. So like I said, we have 3 sessions. Today, we're going to hone in on the first 2 steps on developing a budget, identify waste, and build an emergency fund. So I know budgeting may sound simple to everyone, but let's just actually define what a budget is. So budgeting is not solely tracking expenses. While this step of budgeting process is the art of laying out your plan in the future, but let's keep in mind that as we move forward, tracking expenses establishes a baseline of our data. True budgeting means taking control of it. So therefore, a budget helps you develop awareness of where your money goes. It can help you develop your spending plan. It can help you develop realistic spending expectations. And it can also be based on realistic time-bound goals that you set for you and your family. So here at the foundation, they have suggested that we look and use a budget for every dollar method when we learn how to explain and develop a budget which aligns with our values, our vision, and our goals. So let's just take a look at these 4. The first bucket we have is the have to have. These are the essential items that we have, like paying a mortgage, utilities, and an emergency fund account, and savings. The second bucket we have are the want-to-haves. These are the items that most of us consider being deprived of when we develop a budget. It's things like going to the movies, or buying clothes, or getting that new TV that your friend told you just had to have. Does that sound familiar to anyone? For most of us, this is the bucket that tends to get us in trouble, and pretty fast. The third bucket is called near term. This is for those short-term costs that we all incur that we know are coming up, but we don't necessarily plan for, like an insurance bill that we pay every 6 months, or a small home repair like a dishwasher breaking, or even a summer vacation or the Christmas holiday. This bill comes and we say, oh no, I have not planned, so I guess I'm going to have to break out the credit card to pay for these expenses. And then we have bucket 4, that's the future. This bucket is for your long-term future goals, like retirement or your next car, or maybe a home that you want to buy. For those of us that struggle with this bucket, these are the items that most likely we just hope will take care of themselves. We think, well, if I just keep donating to my 401k, then I'll have enough. Or we just hope that our home will go up in value enough to where we can afford the next home. Or we finance these items like homes in long-term loans, and even at very low interest rates, we end up paying more for the item than the actual property is worth. We use this method because everyone has different opinions on what expenses fall into their different categories. Everyone's going to have different have-to-haves or want-to-haves in their perceptions on what expenses go into those buckets. So the thing about budgeting is knowing when to categorize your expenses and knowing and understanding what bucket you perceive that those expenses fall into, and determining what can be eliminated and what cannot be eliminated. So now that we've gotten through the basics of what a budget is, we're going to do this quick little scenario skit. And it's just going to give us a little bit more background on budgeting and kind of get your hands on for the rest of the session. So now that we are, I'll turn off the mic. Okay, everybody hear me? We're good? Okay, so we're going to look at a scenario about how Bryce, a student in personal finance, helps Carrie, who is in dire need of assistance when developing her first budget. Hey Bryce, do you have time to help me with a money issue?
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, my landlord just called to let me know that my rent is going to be increased by $300 in the next 2 months. He said something about an increase in HOA fees and taxes, so he has increased the rent. But I love this apartment. It is so close to work, it's close to my family, and it has so many great amenities. With my student loans and other bills, I can't afford to keep living here.
Man, that's tough. But I think we can definitely make it work. I've got some errands that I need to run, but I'll be near your neighborhood later. Can I come over beforehand and maybe we can try to create a budget so that you can come up with some extra money?
A budget? I haven't ever created a budget before, so that intimidates me, but I do appreciate your help. So Bryce arrives at Carrie's house not long after that. Okay, I'm ready to get started.
Yep. Okay. So the first step in creating a personal budget is to calculate your income. Are you on a salary, or how do you get paid? Is it monthly, bi-weekly? Better yet, is it okay if I just see your paycheck?
Of course. Let me just log into my account and I'll get that information for you.
So here is a snapshot of Carrie's most recent pay stub. And we're going to play, as a class, we're going to play the role of Bryce. So what information do you all think is important for Bryce to review and, take from this paycheck? Feel free to use your microphone. We'd love to interact with you, or if you're shy, you can always chat your answers in the chat box. Can anybody hear us? Oh, there we go.
Mhm.
Net pay. Yep, that's definitely probably the most important piece of information that Bryce will need. Anybody else have any other suggestions? Yep, the take-home pay, which is also another way of saying net pay. Yep, current deductions. Yes. Anything else that you think might be important when developing a monthly budget? Wink, wink. Yes, good job, Marianetta. The pay period, right? So what do we notice about her pay period here? It's 2 weeks. That's right. You guys are doing great. So let's take a look. So you got just about everything that we could see here. So we see that the pay period is vital because we need to know whether it's biweekly or monthly when developing a monthly budget. Gross wages are important when considering deductions. And while this is an oversimplified example, we did note that in most cases there would be additional deductions like health insurance, maybe dental, maybe maybe there are auto deductions for student loans or to a separate retirement account. So these are all things that if you were developing your budget, you would want to gloss over and grab all of that information. And net pay is probably the most important thing that we need to hone in on for today's lesson. Great. So the next step in creating an effective budget is to track expenses. In order to find the extra money for your rent, we have to see where you spend your money each month.
Well, that should be easy enough. I use my debit card for most purchases, so we should be able to take track of my monthly spending pretty easily. Let me print my last bank and credit card statements. I'll grab some receipts from a few times I went shopping last month too.
All right, so we sent these out this morning just in case you can't see them or can't access them, but they are also uploaded to the Blackboard Collaborate session. So if you're Collaborate savvy and you know where to look in the shared files area, you should see them there. I'm also going to pull them up, but what these are copies of Carrie's credit card statement and her checking account statement. And so what we want you to do is we want you to take a moment or two and look them over and see if you all can identify some spending habits that Carrie has. So let's look at the checking account. Too much spending. Where do you see too much spending, Sid? Overdraft fees, yeah. The miscellaneous stuff. Good job.
Eating out, yes.
Eating out, yes. We definitely can notice this isn't a very long period. This is less than 30 days of her checking account, and we see a lot of eating out. Good job. So I'm going to go to the next slide, but keep that file open if you have it open.
Yeah, gym membership fee is high. That's right.
It is very high.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And all right, so I want you to keep your eyes on her banking statement, but let's try to categorize her expenses using the bucket for every dollar method. Again, feel free to either chat your answers or you're more than welcome to speak up using your microphone. But let's just look over some of those things that you identified. Where do you think they go? Which bucket? Wants, right? Some people say haves. So want to have, right? So eating out, I think a lot of us can agree that eating out is oftentimes a want to have, right? Because we could always cook or buy pre-cooked meals and eat at home. There are a few haves. Amy, what are some of the have to haves that we see on her checking account? Or just one? That's right. Car loans, gas bills, auto insurance. These are our have to haves. That's right, Lisa. So this whole scenario is all about her rent. And so the rent is definitely a have to have. Good job. Do you see anything that might go in bucket 3 or 4? Student loans.
I think Amy mentioned one too, the auto insurance, depending on how you have it
Mm-hmm.
broken up, either on 6 months or month to month.
Yep. So maybe there's some future ones there, depending on how you look at it. And so the importance of revisiting this topic is that, you know, a lot of us will agree on the majority of these answers, but then for each individual person, they're going to be a little different, right? So maybe for some people, the gym membership, for example, maybe some people say that that's a have to have, I have to go to the gym, where others would say, no, you know, you could that's really more of a want. You could work out at home or go outside or go to a park. So great job, folks. So after analyzing your spending habits across a month, the next step is building your budget. And so we want to bring your attention over to the Budget Builder worksheet and spreadsheet that we sent you. They're also available in Blackboard. These tools were provided by the Foundation for Financial Wellness, and they're very easy to use. There's a worksheet that kind of serves as a guide. If you've never worked in Excel or if you're not comfortable working in Excel, the worksheet will help you navigate the spreadsheet. If you are comfortable with Excel and spreadsheets, then you can probably move forward just using the spreadsheet. But let me show you what those look like. So this is the basic budgeting builder worksheet. And what this worksheet does is it breaks down the spreadsheet into sections that are really easy to understand and decipher. And just like Bryce asked for Carrie's pay stub, we would also want you to stop and be able to identify all the different sources of income in your home. Okay, so that, you know, most folks, you know, if you're single and you have multiple jobs, then each source of income would go into each line there so that you can represent them separately. Or if you're in a household with a significant other, you would want to include their income as well. And then the next section is where we would categorize our have to haves, right? And then looking at the next section, there we go. Then we would identify our want to haves. So all you're doing is, if you were doing this after our session today, is you would be transcribing that information from your checking account and your credit card statements over to the spreadsheet, and this document serves as a guide. So let me show you what that spreadsheet looks like. There it goes. Okay, so this spreadsheet is really neat. What happens is all of the formulas that we would normally have to develop in order for this spreadsheet to work are built in for you. So all we need to do is just enter our own information into the fields that are highlighted in yellow, and then everything else is done for us when it comes to the math, which I think is really neat. So for example, if we were using Carrie's information, we only know about one source of income, which would be, you know, Carrie's primary job. And during your first month of tracking or looking backward, you would not use the estimated column at all. You would only be focused on the actual column. And I don't remember the exact figure, but I think Carrie made
1,779.25. So 1,779.
okay. 1,179.25.
Yep.
So we would document her income for the first month there, and then we would start to walk over any of that information that we know about from her checking account and her credit card statements. I'm not going to fill this whole thing out today.
And another thing to remember too is we learned that her check was bi-weekly. So make sure you don't forget that you'll need to double that income because this is a monthly budget spreadsheet. A lot of people might forget to do that.
So yeah, I thought that number sounded funny to me. So I think
I should have given you the total.
Yeah, I think the monthly total was probably closer to $2,500. We'll just, approximately, without doing the math right now. And then we would start to allocate some of those other things that you all identified. So like, one of the number one things that we're talking about today is the rent. So we know that her rent is $900 right now, right? But we also know that it's going to go up in the near future. And that's really important information. We wanted to show you this tool because it's a highly valuable tool. And for those of you who are really wanting to take charge of tracking your own expenses and creating your own budget, we cannot think of a better tool that you could use. And what's really neat is we'll talk a little bit more in the slides to come about how beneficial having this tool can be. But before we do want to reiterate that the best budget tool is the one that you use. So we understand that many of you, I got ahead of myself. Let me get back over to our presentation. There we go. So we want you to know that we understand that using a manual spreadsheet may not be for you. Maybe you're too busy, maybe you don't have the time, maybe you're a little overwhelmed by using spreadsheets, and that's totally okay. As a matter of fact, I think we heard in the video that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau actually stated that of all the folks who begin a budget, only 13% of them actually continue to use it beyond the first month. And when survey respondents were asked why that was, the most common reasons given were feeling overwhelmed, setting unrealistic expectations, or being too strict too soon on their budget. So trying to tighten that belt a little too quickly. And we'll talk about those last two in a little bit. But if you're looking at this spreadsheet tool right now and you feel super overwhelmed because you're not real savvy with spreadsheets, please know that there are applications out there that automate this process for you. Now, there's more applications out there than we could possibly discuss in one day's session. And so what we've done is we've selected two highly recommended free resources that we think you should definitely check out if filling out a spreadsheet manually is not for you. The first one, which is considered the best overall free app for individual users or for couples who have joint checking and savings accounts, is Intuit Mint. It syncs with your bank accounts and your credit cards as long as you give it permission. You're also allowed to create your own savings goals and track any investments. So you can actually put investment information in and it will track them for you. It creates customized alerts when you go over budget or if you have significantly large transactions, or it also identifies any type of ATM fees or overdraft fees. It also can be set to give you bill payment reminders, monitor your credit. There are additional educational tools, and the security features that come with this app are very high. So the chances of a hacker getting into your information are extremely low. So that's why it comes so highly recommended. Now, some of you might be in a relationship where you and your significant other or your partner don't have the same checking account, or you have separate accounts. If that's the case, Honeydew comes the most highly recommended for folks in that situation, because each partner can log in and grant access to those accounts that they want access granted to, and then you can still build a joint budget using your separate information and your separate accounts and separate bills. What's also really neat to point out about that app is that couples can actually use it as a communication system. So if you are hopping on Honeydew and you see an expense and you're like, huh, what is that? You can actually chat your partner and say, hey, what is this? I don't recognize this. Did this happen, or do we need to dispute this? So I thought that was really neat. You can also make payments using the Honeydew app, just like Venmo or PayPal. And I thought that was a really notable feature too. Again, there's several other apps out there. If you would like a list of more, please let us know. We actually have a very long list. We just didn't want to dive too deep into that list during the session today.
And we have a question from Janet. She would like to know, where do charitable donations fit in on your budget? Where would you list those in at? And I think that's a lot to do with kind of
I
how
think
you
it's under
proceed.
well, I think there's a miscellaneous
Miscellaneous.
category that's where you would add that, because not everybody does charitable
Yeah,
donations.
there's places where you can actually type in where it says other, if there's something that's specific to you that's not listed on the budget spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so because there's simply not enough time for us as a class, we only have an hour with you folks today to walk all this over, we've actually gone ahead and created a very simplified version of the budget spreadsheet with Carrie's information in it. So you'll notice that everything is categorized, so it's very easy for Carrie to see like where her money is going. There's a savings and debt category, there's food and sundries, transportation, and so on. And so by categorizing these expenses, it makes it much easier for Carrie and Bryce to be able to analyze where her money is going. And what's really neat about the tool that we've provided you is it has additional columns that create percentages, because a lot of folks are not math savvy. And so when you see whole dollar amounts, it's kind of complicated to know what those whole dollar amounts represent. But the tool that we've provided you actually converts those into percentages so that you can see how much percentage of your income that things are going to. Now, looking at Carrie's budget, how much residual or disposable income does she have right now at the end of the month? Can anybody see that there? We've highlighted the two areas that you would need to see to determine that. That's right, Lisa, about $52. And if you remember from earlier in the session, she's struggling with a rent increase. She needs an additional $300 per month to stay in her apartment. So looking over this budget, now that you all see it categorized, what areas where do you think we can find that additional $300? That's right, Lisa. So maybe cut out some of her entertainment. She's spending nearly $160 a month on going to events and restaurant meals. And yes, earlier we talked about the gym membership. So she's spending $80 a month to go to a gym. Maybe she can cut that out. So just those two areas right there add up to $240.
Yes, Amy. The $300 is in the credit card under savings and debt payoff. So she had $300 on credit card for her clothes. So that's, yeah, very good that you noticed that.
That's right. So, you know, if we live near a Planet Fitness, we could narrow that down to just $10 a month. That's right, Sid. And yes, I think I was supposed to show you the credit card statement. She does spend on average about $300 a month going shopping.
Yeah.
Or at least that's the information that we have based on the receipts and things that she gave us.
We have all been there.
So these are all really great ideas. So I think we can all agree that she can definitely afford this rent increase if we just starting to eliminate some of this excessive spending. So we're identifying spending habits. So That's exactly what you would do if you were analyzing your budget from a previous month and you have never had a budget before. So like we said earlier, the budget tool that we provide you has an estimated column and an actual column. And if after our session today, you want to sit down and start doing this month, you would want to look at the month of March and you would ignore the estimated column. Because right now, all we're doing with Carrie is we're trying to establish a baseline. We're trying to see where her money goes. And so we would only fill out the actual column. And then once we fill out that whole column, like you saw on the last slide, we would then come up with some solutions, just like you all did, right? And then once we come up with those solutions, that's when the estimated column comes in. So at the start of April, Carrie would want to go in and say, okay, I'm spending, I think we said she spends too much on entertainment. So she would say, okay, I spent $80 last month on entertainment. I'm going to try to reel that in down to 20. So at the start of the month, she would actually put $20 in that first column, and then she would try to be very self-disciplined and see if she can make it to the end of the month and stay true to that goal. So you have to look at your estimated column like a goals area, right? So, and this is probably the most important part of budgeting. As Alex said earlier, budgeting is not just tracking expenses, it's making a plan. So while we are tracking during that first month, and it can seem difficult and tedious, we have to track and establish that baseline so that we can then start to come up with goals for eliminating wasteful spending, and then that can lead to the next step in the process, which we discussed earlier. Does anybody remember what the next step was? Nope, that's okay. Ah, there it is. That's right. Develop an emergency fund. Now, I'm sure you've all heard this term before, and I know it's definitely one of those things that we know that we ought to have, but according to Bankrate.com, actually only about less than 4 in 10 Americans actually have an emergency fund. So when surveyed and asked, like, could you afford an unexpected car repair, an emergency trip to the hospital, or a major house repair in excess of $1,000, less than 4 in 10 Americans said yes, that they could actually do that. It's very important to understand that emergency funds are the bedrock of good or strong financial wellness. Without them, there will always be risk associated with the unexpected. For this reason, it is the first savings goal that we must approach. If we were in Carrie's shoes, she needs to find the residual income to handle this rent increase, but this would be the next step that we would suggest to her after accounting for that rent increase. And we like to look to Dave Ramsey. Maybe some of you are familiar with his work, but he provides baby steps for working toward good, strong financial wellness. And the Foundation for Financial Wellness states that a good emergency fund is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in your household. But Dave Ramsey actually says that that's a really hard goal to set for yourself in the beginning. And so that first baby step should really be to just try to save $1,000 in a separate savings account that you have labeled your emergency fund. And we like that. We like that, you know, baby steps are how we really reach long and large goals. So I think the $1,000 is the way to go.
It's definitely more realistic starting out.
Mm-hmm. So we also provided you this worksheet. It's available in Blackboard. We also sent it to you via email. This is called the Emergency Fund Worksheet. And since this savings goal will be different for each person, it's very important that you sit down and fill this out for yourself. But what it does is it helps you to consider all of those fixed or have to have expenses that you know you must be able to cover each month. And then it helps you calculate 3 months worth of salary. So maybe some of you already have hit that $1,000 savings goal. And if you had, then the next question would be to ask yourself if you've done 3 months, if you have 3 months worth of salary set aside. Now, again, we hope that you will use this sheet after class today, but for the purposes of class, we've actually used Carrie's information just to demonstrate an example of how this might be filled out. So looking back over her checking account and her expenses, she had a grocery bill of $350. If we add up her utilities, they added up to be approximately $130. Her mortgage was her rent was $900, but we know it's going to increase to $1,200 very soon. She also has a car payment, and there's several other monthly expenses that I think most of us would agree are have-to-haves, like her internet, her phone bill, her student loan payments, and so on. So looking over this document and seeing it filled out with Carrie's information, we see that she should have almost $7,500 in her emergency fund to be considered secure, financially secure, and being able to look forward to other types of savings and investing. Which takes us to our next worksheet. And we're going to give you a few minutes to actually look this one over. So after we've met those initial savings goals, so the first baby step is the $1,000. If you've gotten past that, then 3 months, and even better, if you can get past that 3 months, then try to save for 6 months, if that seems feasible. We then want to start beginning to focus on those other goals. And this is the beginning of your formal financial plan. If you were with us on PD Day, we did mention that we would be developing a formal financial plan during this series. So this is that first worksheet where we really begin to start that plan. So we sent this to you. If you need it, please let us know. But what it does is it breaks down your goals into short, intermediate, and long-term goals. Short-term goals are typically less than a year. Intermediate goals are between 1 and 5 years. And long-term goals are typically anything more than 5 years. So take a moment and consider, what are your short-term goals? What position are you in right now? And these are rhetorical questions. We're not asking you to share this information. But for some of you, maybe you have found yourself in a lot of debt. And maybe debt reduction is really why you are taking this class. Others of you might be in a different position, where maybe you've already met some of these short-term savings goals that we've mentioned today, and you're looking for guidance on how to start to work towards those intermediate or long-term goals. Everyone's situation will be different, but take a moment either now or later today and fill this document out. And this is just for you. This is not going to be turned in to anyone. Okay, I know that some of you might still be working on that worksheet, but just in the interest of making sure that we finish within this hour, we know many of you might have meetings right after this session. We just want to reiterate that we will be focusing on how to prioritize your savings. So today we discussed developing a budget and identifying wasteful spending, creating residual income so that we can develop an emergency fund. And what we plan to do in the weeks to come are to focus on debt reduction and credit. That's going to be the primary focus of next week's session. And then the final session, we're going to focus on retirement, estate planning, and additional investing. And of course, if there's any special request, please let us know. We did kind of label that last one as a potpourri, I believe, just in case anyone during this month had something specific they wanted us to focus on. We're happy to accommodate.
All right, so we'll take this time. We got about 8 minutes to 9 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions for us that we can answer? We will be happy to do that. I also want to share with you guys, I'm an Excel nerd. So if you have this budget spreadsheet and that is a tool that you are comfortable with using, reach out to me. I would love to help you with it. I'm actually using this sheet myself. I actually started using it after this class, and I've really enjoyed it. And I've actually built new templates for every month of the year. So please reach out. I'd love to help you guys with that if you have any questions at all. Other than that, does anybody have any questions for us? Or any questions about the next sessions? And these are the times and the dates for the next 2 sessions that we're going to be offering. Yes, Amy, I can do that. I will send out another email for the Excel spreadsheet, just in case the original link was not working. That is not a problem at all.
So Janet said that one of the things she'd like us to focus on is types of loans, such as home equity line of credit. We can definitely do that, Janet.
Yeah.
I will jot that down now and make sure that we cover it.
I think that's definitely one that more and more people are using, or might not know how the interest is compounded.
Oh, yeah.
Like that.
We
So
can
that
totally do
definitely
that.
is a really good topic to be on for next week. Any other topics that y'all might want to talk about for next week for debt and credit? We're building these ourselves, so we can gear the information however you guys want it to be. So any ideas are great, and we'll make sure that we include those items on the presentation for next week.
Oh, I see your question, Morgan. So that's a tricky situation because in finance, we call an emergency fund ought to be highly liquid. And when we say liquid, what we mean is you should be able to convert it to cash very quickly and without penalty. So searching for the highest yield on that savings account without incurring a penalty is the best bet for the emergency fund. So when we're specifically talking about emergency funds, there should be no penalty for needing to access those funds. There are, if you're comfortable with online banking, there are much higher yield savings accounts that might be available in your region or area. And if you would like to continue that conversation after class, I'm happy to help you with that. Thanks, Laura. We're definitely going to focus on retirement planning in session 3. So thank you for asking about that.
And actually, that's a good point about you said keeping your savings and enrichment in the same account. I know for me, I just recently opened up a new one because I was so tempted to, I couldn't gauge between what was my emergency fund and what was savings. So to me, it was much easier to put it in a separate account that I just did not touch unless I needed.
Yes, Ashley, please email either one of us or both of us. We're happy to help.
Mm-hmm.
Very. You guys have all been great. All great answers today. Everybody's on the same page. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you, Casey. Thanks, Garrett. Well, I guess we didn't mention this, but I think all of you are signed up for all 3 sessions. But if you didn't realize this was a series, this is a 3-parter. So hopefully we'll see you all next Friday at the exact same time. Thanks, Karen. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Amy. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Tanasha. Thanks, Sid. Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks, Janet. Thanks, Lauren.
You too, Lauren.
Well, I think we've got about 4 minutes left. Anybody has any other last questions? If not, we look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, please reach out to us. We'll be glad to help in any way. Like I said, if you need help with the budget spreadsheet, I'm going to send out another email with a new link to that just to make sure that the first one got sent out fine. If there's no other further questions, y'all have an amazing weekend, and we will see you next Friday.
That's right.